Hello and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. My name is Josh. It's fantastic to have you on board yet again for round 21. Unfortunately, Nick is not with us this week as he is a bit crook, so we have to do it audio this week. I've got Vinay with me this week. How are you, mate?
I'm very good as usual, Josh. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I believe you had a birthday during the week.
I did, mate. I did. Turned 20, so no longer a teenager.
Oh, fantastic, mate. Have a good day.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. The Eagles got up over there in Patterson's, and we'll get into that soon. So it was definitely a good day.
Our tips, I got another one out in front this week, so I'm just running away with it this year.
I tell you what, Josh, you did say, I'll give you that. You did say that you'd make your famed comeback at some stage. So good on you for eventually getting back into it.
Yeah, I'm on 120 at the moment. Nick's on 117, and Vinay's way back on 115. So
Wobble, 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 Josh.
wobble, wobble, wobble. It's all there, mate. It's all there.
Uh,
But just one final reminder: we will release our tips on Friday night at 6 p.m. Our finalised tips. I did make that late change to Richmond that got me the extra tip on the weekend, so it was a bit bittersweet, but I got the tip in the end.
You had a bit of a feeling about that, didn't you, Josh? You were saying that, Essendon, you weren't too confident with the outs that they had, and you ended up being right. Much to your
Yeah, absolutely.
displeasure, though.
Anyway, mate, let's get into it. It's Friday night at Etihad Stadium. It is Carlton versus Geelong. The last time these two teams met, it was Geelong by 5 points. The Cats have won their last 5 encounters. Vinay, let's start with the Blues. They were very good against Gold Coast on the weekend.
They were. A lot of people actually expected them to be down on performance. They had a very, very good game against Fremantle over in Perth the week before, and, they looked like they were going to get away with it. They probably should have gotten away with it, but they came back and came up against the Gold Coast side who you're not really sure what to expect from them, but it was definitely a good win, Josh. They weren't a guaranteed winner of this game, but they certainly did get the job done.
I tell you what, Blues fans will be absolutely wrapped with this news that came out tonight. Chris Judd confirms that he will go on in season 2015. That's just great news considering that we've had the likes of Dean Cox, Lenny Hayes, Jonathan Brown, these greats of the game bow out this season. It's great to see one of them go on for another year, and he had a great game on the weekend. He had 27 disposals and 2 goals.
Oh yeah, for sure. The amount of quality that's retiring, you could probably make yourself a team with just the people that have retired this year. That is how much experience and quality all across the ground that has retired this year. And Lenny Hayes, he's a class player, as is Chris Judd. I'm very, very happy to see Judd go around again in 2015. I personally think that he's had a bit of an injury-interrupted year. Hasn't been a stellar kind of year, but I think he deserves to retire in a year where he's played most, if not all, games.
Yeah, one player for me that really bobbed up on the weekend was Tommy Bell. He kicked 4 goals and had 19 disposals against the Gold Coast Suns. I really like the way he attacks the ball. He's been in and out of the side. I believe he signed a contract extension earlier this year, so I obviously see a lot of potential in him, and it was good to see some of that potential on the weekend.
Yeah, well, Tommy Bell, Josh, here's something for you. He was picked 94 in the 2013 draft.
94.
94. So when you're talking about the deep end of the pool, that's what Tommy Bell was. He was way back in the end of the draft, and he's actually not been too bad, like you mentioned. He's played 10 games for the Blues already, and this year, that is. He's played 10 games this year, and he's had some pretty good games, so definitely agree with you there, Josh. In fact, I'd probably say the game he had on the weekend was his career best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously that he had. So it's fantastic to see him play some consistent football. There's also some good signs that we perhaps didn't see earlier in the year. You and I especially, been pretty critical of Carlton this year. And probably in the last month they've shown some real signs of playing some really good consistent footy, so it's good to see.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with you there, Josh. Carlton, they're the team that start off. There seems to be a lot of teams doing this. They start off really average, but then they've just come storming home. You think of West Coast, Richmond, and Carlton, they're all coming to mind. But it's good, though, isn't it? I mean, then you get some momentum going into season 2015.
Absolutely. Now the Cats of an A. We're going to have to do this by ourselves without Nick here this week. But on Saturday night they narrowly got over the line of Fremantle. A kick after the side from David Bundy fell right. But Harry Taylor, mate, he was just absolutely magnificent. He had 27 disposals and 19 marks.
Oh yeah, he was something else, Harry Taylor. And how about the statistic going into that game? He had not lost a one-on-one contest in 4 weeks. That to me is just unbelievable. He's probably in fact, a lot of people would say he's the best key position, one of the best key position defenders in the game at the moment. But to me, it's not just what he does as a key position defender. He can influence the play, and I see a lot of when I look at Cale Hooker, I see a lot of Harry Taylor in him, and I think that he'll be very important for the Cats going into the finals.
Joel Selwood as well, mate. He's coming home hard in this Brownlow. Obviously, Gaz has been out for a number of weeks now. He hasn't really been spoken about. I mean, it's been the likes of Josh Kennedy and a few others. Matty Pritis had another good game on the weekend, but Joel Selwood, he's coming hard.
Well, he has a habit of doing this, doesn't he? He seems to just really, really like the last, 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And you're right, he is coming home like a rampaging bull. He had another really, really good performance on the weekend. It's these games at the end of the season that really help the Cats get momentum going into finals. And how about this? So Joel Selwood has actually kicked 3 goals for the last 3 weeks that he's played. And so, that could very easily be, 6 goals to 7 goals. What that tells me is that now he's starting to regularly impact that scoreboard. And that's exactly what they need him to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember him doing that last year when he came home like a train in the Brownlow. He started kicking goals, became a goal-kicking midfielder. That's probably the only weakness that he had in his game before last year, was that he didn't impact the scoreboard enough. And now he's starting to do that in the last year and a half or so. He's become that real complete player. But one player that's not going to be in contention for the Brownlow, Stevie J, had a bit of a brain fade again on the weekend. He's towing that line. It was probably the right decision to let him off. Well, it was the right decision to let him off because he hardly touched him.
Yep.
But it was pretty done by Stevie J.
Yeah, look, you're a pretty objective kind of person, Josh, and you were the first to say that, no, he should not get weeks for that. But I tell you what, Josh, he's a star player and we all love him, but I've never seen a player push the envelope so close to being suspended on so many occasions. But look, he's playing well, and that's all Geelong probably need from him. A man that is, again, getting into some really good form, and age does not seem to be impacting him. Corey Enright, Josh, he's meant to be making a decision on his career after September, but he had 27 disposals on Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. You can probably tell he's trying to avoid contact at all times because 26 of those disposals were uncontested. He only had the one contested disposal on the weekend against Fremantle. So, but I think Nick said in the past that he's pretty confident that this will be Enright's last season. So he's going to be a big loss, but it just shows how valuable he is to this side at the moment.
Yeah, well, to me, he looks a lot like the Paul Chapmans or the Lenny Hayes. I mean, they're getting old, but it doesn't seem to be making a difference to the way they play. They're still just playing at their peak, and they're just those real vintage players, aren't they?
They are. All right, mate. Who are we tipping?
This is an interesting one, Josh. I think, and the reason I say it's interesting, if Nick was here, he'd probably scoff at me for even considering that Geelong could lose.
But he's probably listening at the moment.
He is, and he's probably thinking, oh, you've lost your mind, Vinay. But Geelong only won by 5 points last time, and if I do recall correctly, that was a very, very close game that Carlton probably should have won. So I'm going to tip Geelong by just 4 points in this encounter. I think I would not be surprised if Carlton won, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I've got Nick's tips as well, so I'll give his first. He's tipped Geelong by 27. But yeah, I seem to agree with you, Vinay. I just think Carlton are in pretty good form at the moment. Geelong coming off a really tough, hard game against Fremantle. I think Geelong will get up, but I'll give Carlton a massive chance. I'll tip Geelong by 10 points. Anyway, moving into our next game, which is Sydney versus St Kilda. It's Saturday afternoon at the SCG. Last time these two teams met, it was Sydney by 59 points. Sydney have won the last 3 encounters between these two sides. Vinay, I fear big time for the St Kilda Football Club this week.
I do as well, Josh. It's I think St Kilda fans would probably feel a bit nervous about their football club heading up to Sydney, playing Sydney, and the Swans are really looking quite good. I mean, Port Adelaide came at them very hard, but the Saints, it's Lenny's nearing the end of his tether. Maybe they can, squeeze out some of their spirit for him. but you never really know. But I sense a very, very big win in the offing there, Josh.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's Lance Franklin's 200th game this week, so you can guarantee he's going to be looked for a big, big game.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I know. Buddy, does Buddy like beating up on the weaker teams? I can't really tell because he kicks goals against the good sides as well. But
I don't think he really cares who he plays against, mate. To be honest.
it's a very good point. He'll still take them from 55 meters on the boundary line. But yeah, I think you're right. It's his 200th as well, and he's a showman, isn't he? He is the kind of man that he's literally just an entertainer, and he does it so well. But the Swans will be looking to give him some good service. He wasn't that good against Port Adelaide. Alipati Carlisle kept him to just the 2 goals, Josh. But
yeah, absolutely. I think it was Jack Homch actually that took Buddy Franklin on the weekend.
Oh, it was Jack Homch. Even better, I think. Jack Homch, I mean, a player that's come across from, I think it was Gold Coast, I think. And
GWS.
GWS, okay, so one of the expansion clubs. But yeah, Buddy's a very competitive person, so I can see him coming back and really trying to, put the Saints to the sword this week. But a man that we've been banging on about every single week, but he gives us reason to bang on about him. He's probably in All-Australian form right now. He's had another 3 goals and 20 disposal game. Ben McGlynn.
Yeah, he's in my All-Australian side at the moment. He just keeps performing. And, I mean, we spoke about him last week about pushing that elite status level. And he certainly flies under the radar of a lot of sides. And I just think he's having an outstanding year and is certainly in my All-Australian side at the moment.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I really appreciate about him is that he can tag as well. So that is just another feather in his cap. Another man who's similar to Ben McGlynn. He's also a tagging midfielder that's a little nuggety bloke. Our favourite word there, Josh. But Craig Bird, he nuggets his way under the radar of many teams. He had 24 touches and 10 tackles on the weekend, so he was just a rabid animal.
Yeah, absolutely. 12 of those were contested. He's just a fantastic footballer, and it just shows the real depth that this Sydney side has, that a guy like Craig Bird can fly under the radar of 17 other opposition sides and do his work and gather 24 disposals and have a real influence on the game. And that's what he did on Saturday night against Port Adelaide. He just found the ball, and every time he touched it, he made it worthwhile, and he's just a fantastic footballer.
You might even say that he's flying away from them, Josh. Craig Bird. The bird is flying away from them.
We'll just move on that one. Vinay, Kurt Tippett. I'm not sure if he's 100% fit, mate. He's just not looking right. I mean, I'm pretty slow, and I reckon I could run faster than him at the moment. He just doesn't look fit.
He's the kind of player that he's very, very damaging, and we know that last year he kicked, I think it was 39 goals in 14 games or something ridiculous like that. So he's the kind of player so he's a very damaging player, and he hasn't been at that damaging best. So you do start to ask questions, and a couple of games he's been a late exclusion. Against West Coast he was taken out late. So I definitely agree with you that he's probably playing with some kind of a niggle at the moment, but I tell you what, Sydney would not want to risk him. No offence to any St Kilda fans or St Kilda in general, but you'd think that you'd probably just want to look after him heading into finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, no disrespect to St Kilda and their fans and the players and everything, but you'd be pretty silly not to rest him this week. I mean, he just hasn't looked right since he's come back in the side. He's had knee troubles all year. I just think this would be the perfect game to rest him. I mean, surely with the talent Sydney has, you'd be able to cover for St Kilda. But anyway, moving on to the Saints, mate. We are dragging on a little bit, but
I've got a pun for you though, Josh. I've got one more pun for you.
Oh, here we go.
He might be rested, but you wouldn't be able to tip it. All right, that was awful. That was awful. We'll move on. Sorry to our listeners out there.
Moving on. St Kilda, they were good in patches against the Dogs yesterday, but probably equally as bad in patches yesterday. They were defensively pretty ordinary, but attacking-wise, they were very, very good. I thought they were able to find ways through the Bulldogs' defence. But their defence really let them down in the end, letting in too many easy goals, run through the middle for the Bulldogs. So yeah, there were some good signs there yesterday, but yeah, I think they will receive the wooden spoon at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. You know, they're just a very young side. I mean, that's what young sides are. They're very streaky. But James Gwilt, there are some positives. He is actually a good player, Josh. You do like him anyway. You do rate him, but I've always liked him. He's just a kind of like a business end kind of player. He won't do anything flashy, but he'll get the job done. He's a good key position defender and a rebounding player. He had 20 touches on the weekend. But one man who also plays a rebounding role, and he probably was an All-Australian, I think, back in 2011 or 2012, Sam Fisher has been absolutely spectacular since his return, Josh. He's strung 4 games in a row together,
Yep.
and he's had toe problems the whole year, and he's signalled his intention to keep going next year. He said that he definitely wants to keep going,
Yep.
and he's just been superb for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's such a vital defender. I think he gives so much more to the side when he's a running defender instead of a stay-at-home defender. What I mean by running defender is he runs off halfback, links up with his teammates and everything like that. Stay-at-home defender is where he basically shuts down the key position forward of the opposition. Now that St Kilda have got the likes of Luke Delaney, Josh Bruce has floated back and forward, I just think they can really utilise Sam Fisher in next year and potentially further if Fisher believes he can go further as a running defender. St Kilda are a very young side. The longer they can get Sam Fisher playing, the better, because experience is just unprecedented in this competition, and the longer he can play, the better for the St Kilda Footy Club, I feel.
Definitely in that club, which is struggling for experience. Who are we going to tip, Josh? I'll read out Nick's first. He reckons the Swans will get it done by 61 points. So Nick's going for a big one there. What do you think, Josh?
Nick's going for a big one. I'm going for a big one, mate. Yeah, Sydney, I picked a number between 100 and 150, and I landed on 139.
Wow, alrighty. So you've literally pretty much doubled what Nick said. I reckon Sydney will also have a big win. I'm going to tip them by about 70 points. Josh, I'll cut them some slack, the poor St. Kilda team. But moving on, it is Gold Coast and Port Adelaide. So we're hopping back onto the plane and flying over to Metricon. And the last time these two teams met, Port won by 17 points. And Port have won the last 3, so they have the privilege of being able to say that they've never lost to Gold Coast. There are some...
They have lost to Gold Coast. They lost their... Gold Coast
that was
won
their
their
first game, wasn't it?
They did, yep.
You're right. Okay, well, there's a little fun fact. But in any case, Gold Coast lost to Carlton by 39 points. They didn't look too impressive, Josh. Didn't ever really look like being a chance in the game.
They were... I'll put it bluntly, mate, insipid. Absolutely insipid against Carlton. They showed form of their inception year in 2011, and they just weren't good enough at all. I gave them my who's hot, who's not this week. They were furthest thing away from who's hot, but they were just insipid. The only player that could hold his head high was Tom Lynch. Tom Lynch was absolutely phenomenal. He had 24 disposals. So for a big man, a key forward, 15 of those were contested. So he had a fantastic game. But this Gold Coast Suns side, we said at the start of the year, there's no excuses anymore. They cannot be labelled as young. They've had 4 years in the system now. It's time they started showing something. Early on in the season, they did. But now that Gaz has gone out, they just fell to pieces. And I honestly believe, although they're sitting 10th at the moment, because Collingwood dropped out of the 8, although they're sitting 10th at the moment, only a game outside the 8, they're shot, and I don't think they can make finals. I mean, they've got Port Adelaide this week, Essendon next week at Etihad Stadium, and then West Coast back at Metricon. That is a tough run home. Their season is done.
Yes, I would agree with you, Josh. I can probably see 3 losses there, the way they're going at the moment. I cannot see any of those 3 games finishing well for them, but I'd agree with you there. Which is disappointing. I mean, they were in the top 4 at one stage. It's amazing how quickly teams can fall from grace. And speaking of a fall from grace, the side Port Adelaide, they were 2 games clear at the top at one stage. Am I right?
They were, yes.
And now they are, I believe, 6th on the ladder.
That's 5th.
Fifth, okay, yep. So, but risking falling back to sixth. So they've got some tough games coming up. They were much, much better against Sydney, but they weren't good enough to get over the line. They kicked 7-16, Josh. That is just wasted opportunities to a T there.
Inexcusable, mate. Inexcusable.
It definitely is, especially against a team like Sydney, where the chances you'll get will be few and far between. To let through that many behinds is just not acceptable. Travis Boak, though, I'll tell you what, Captain Courageous, he was just unbelievable. 31 disposals and 2 goals. His disposal efficiency was very high. He tackled well. And how about this? He got a tag the whole night, Josh. So he handled it really, really, really well. Robbie Gray, I think I'm developing a man crush on this man.
Yeah? Why is that?
I'm very slowly... Because he is an absolute superstar. He had 37 disposals and 11 clearances. This man's fitness base, this man's aerobic capacity is off the charts. I don't know if he's been working on it in the off-season, but the way he covers the ground is unbelievable, Josh. He'll get a touch in defence, then he'll pop up in the forward line and take a mark. So he's just a star, and he's one of your favourites, isn't he, Josh?
Robbie Gray, he's just an absolute gun. Absolute gun. I like him a lot.
Keeping
that's all I can say. He had 37 disposals and 11 clearances.
You're right, though. There is literally nothing else we can really say about him. Everything's been said. But Jay Schultz, I don't know what I actually reckon this man has whatever Josh Kennedy had last year at the same time. He has got that because Schultz was leading the column and he looked to be, the sure winner. And all of a sudden, he has been maybe insipid. Can we use that word, Josh?
I wouldn't say insipid because he did have 3 shots on goal on the weekend, all from very tough angles, but he was held goalless for the first time on the weekend all year. So his last month hasn't been the greatest, but he still had a fantastic year. I mean, he still provides up. He still is a lead-up target for his teammates, and I still think he was okay. I think Richards got the better of him by a long way, but yeah, I think Schultz was okay, but yeah, not one of his better games.
Definitely not, but it'll be a very interesting contest. Guess who is having a milestone, Josh?
That'll be Travis Boak. He plays game 150, the Port Adelaide skipper. What a move that was. I mean, just go back a couple of years. He was offered big money to go to Geelong, and he said, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to captain this football club. And he's just turned into a phenomenal footballer. So congratulations, Travis Boak, on game 150.
I love his attitude, Josh. All his mates. Joel Selwood, a close friend of his. He played for the Falcons. He was born in Melbourne, I think. So some very, very tempting offers, but really he deserves every accolade he gets, that man, Trav Boak.
Who are we tipping, mate?
I am going to go the Port Power because I don't see Gold Coast winning a game for the rest of the year, mate. I'll tip Port by, I'd say, 20 points.
Yeah, Nick has tipped Port Adelaide by 14 points. I will tip Port Adelaide by 32. As I said, I just think the Gold Coast undershot. Although it's up at Metricon, they're not playing great footy at the moment. So, yeah, I'll be tipping Port Adelaide by 32 points. But the big game that you and I both want to talk about, we won't spend too long on it because there are a few other games to get through, but it is my Essendon versus your West Coast Eagles, Vinay. It's on Saturday afternoon at Etihad Stadium. The last time these two teams met, we won't remember that one, but no, it was West Coast by 53 points at Etihad Stadium. Shannon Hearn, mate, Big Bung, plays game 150.
Big Bad Bunger, I believe he is referred to. He's an absolute... he's a champion, Josh. He's an absolute champion. He has improved out of sight as his career has gone on. He's always been known for his big, booming right foot, but he's actually improved his aerobic capacity, his tackling work, his contested marking, and, he's a potential captain for next year. I would not discount that at all. And he had a spectacular game. He had 11 disposals at quarter time, and he had 6 score involvements at quarter time, Josh. He already had 6 score involvements.
That's phenomenal. That's a fair quarter of football.
Oh, yeah, he was chopping up Collingwood, and you'd think that Essendon would ensure that they have someone on him. But speaking of Essendon, a game that I felt they really should have won against the Tigers, but yes, they did have a lot of players go down to injury. I think Dustin Fletcher didn't play, which hurt their defensive setups. but they do have a few players coming in. One man another man that I'm developing a man crush on. People out there will think I'm a bit stalky, but Dyson Heppel, is this man a future Brownlow medalist? Please just tell me he is.
Well, I'm not counting him out for this year, to be honest, because those big blonde wavy locks are
They don't go
very
unnoticed. I agree.
They don't go unnoticed. And he was easily our best on Friday night against Richmond. He had 32 disposals, single-handedly got us within a chance in that last quarter. I believe he got a clearance, kicked it forward, followed it up, and then kicked the goal. So I cannot honestly remember a bad game that this guy has played in his 82-game career. He is just a phenomenal footballer, and he's just 21 years old.
That's what
21.
baffles me. That's surely a typo of some sort, but he's unbelievable. His ability to read the centre hitouts. He works extremely well with Paddy Ryder, but he's exceptional, and I think that West Coast will definitely send a tag to him for sure. The forward 50 entry is what cost Essendon. They had 14 more inside 50s, Josh. How did they lose by 3 goals?
Just our forward entry was just deplorable. Deplorable is the only word I can think of. I mean, our ball movement from defence through the midfield was fantastic, but once we got inside 50, we're going inside 50, it was just non-existent. And Gary Lyon made a very good point on Triple M on Saturday afternoon when they were talking about the game. He said it's probably the most important kick in football going inside that forward 50. And at the moment, I'd say we are one of the worst in the competition because we got the big tall forwards down there in Carlisle, Danaher. Ambrose is likely to come back in this week as well. Throw in Ryder and Bellchambers when they're in the side. Our delivery inside that forward 50 is just, as I said, deplorable.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing to watch. And it's interesting because West Coast have had the exact same issue, so it'll be interesting to see how those two sides stack up. But there are some big ins coming in this week for Essendon, and when I say big, I mean Brownlow medalist big. Josh, who's coming back in this week?
Well, King Jobulus, as you like to call him,
Yes.
Job Watson. He is almost a certainty to come back this week if he gets through full training. He's been cleared by the doctor and the surgeon, so he is, as I like to say, a Monty to come back in. Michael Hibbert is also a very strong chance to come back into the side as well. He's missed the last couple of weeks with a hamstring injury. Patrick Ambrose missed last week also with a jaw. I think he may or may not come back in. He's a 50-50 chance. And the other one is Tom Bellchambers. I thought we really fell down in the forward line last week. We lacked that another tall option. And Bellchambers played in the VFL on the weekend against Collingwood, kicked 2 goals, took a number of good contested marks. I think he will come back in the side just to give us that added tool in the forward line.
That would definitely help, Josh. I thought that you guys were a little undermanned in that forward line in terms of tall timber. Brent Stanton had 25 possessions, but he was not very influential. He seems to have a bit of Trent Cotchin syndrome for me. He's sort of likes to go sideways and backwards and all these ridiculous kind of touches, but he doesn't really seem to impact the play, which is really what he's meant to do. You know what I mean? As a running wingman, he is meant to impact the play. But what do you think, Josh? Do you think maybe it's time that Essendon have a look at him, or?
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific footballer. I mean, I'm a big fan of Brent Stanton, but he's just been like that for too long. He gets the ball, but he doesn't have an impact with the ball. I mean, he has his breakout games where he gets 38 disposals and does have an impact on the game, but he doesn't do it often enough. And for me, he's only going to be a good player, but he can be so much more. He can be one of the elite footballers in the competition because of his running capacity, but he doesn't do enough with his disposal. As you say, he's a running wingman. He needs to become a 80 to 100 metre player rather than a 50 to 60 metre player. Too many of this short chipping. He just needs to do more for my liking.
Definitely agree with you, Josh. On the other side of this coin, we have the West Coast Eagles. Matthew Priddis is an absolute superstar. He's probably in the top 5 midfielders in the game at this point in time. He's averaged 35 disposals over the last 3 weeks and 29 disposals across the season. He's a contested ball winning machine, Josh. He had 10 contested possessions at quarter time.
Really?
And those are just contested possessions, not just possessions.
That can't be right, surely.
It is. It's amazing because that's what a lot of midfielders actually end up getting throughout their whole game, around 10 contested possessions. So he's just an animal. He gets the tag every week. He even went forward and kicked a goal. Adam Simpson said it today that he's a jet. He said it himself, so there it is. He would definitely attract a tag. Josh, surely, do you think Hocking will run with him, or?
Yeah, Heath Hocking is an absolute certainty to run with him. They're similar built in similar type of players in terms of build. So Pritis isn't overly that quick, neither is Hocking. So it's the perfect matchup for me. I think Hocking will go to him, but he's obviously going to have his hands full because Pritis is averaging 35 disposals in the last 3 weeks. So he's just dominating at the moment. Another player who's found some really good form, we were pretty critical early of him in the year, but Andrew Gaff. I thought his run against Collingwood last night, mate, was just phenomenal. He broke them open. His run down the wing, down the midfield is just so pivotal to this West Coast side.
Oh, yeah. I'll definitely agree. I'll put my hand up and say that I was critical of Gaffey. I think earlier in the year I said that, a lot of Eagles fans, not just me, mind you, looked at him as potential trade bait, given that his contract is coming to an end of this year and he's a Victorian. But tell you what, he's very close to re-signing with West Coast and couldn't be happier, West Coast fans. And he's been spectacular. He's got a very, very big aerobic tank, and he can really, really cause trouble because he's an excellent kick. And how's this for a stat, Josh? Andrew Gaff last year was ranked number 1 for targets hit inside 50.
Really?
Yep, he was. He was the number 1 player in terms of percentage of times that he hit a target inside 50 with his inside 50 entrances. So he's very, very damaging. And when you've got guys like Lacroix, Darling, and Kennedy in there, you want to be able to stop him. So I would not be surprised if Essendon sent somebody to him because he can be really, really deadly on the outside. But 6 West Coast players had 30 touches or more, Josh, and of them were West Coast's big 3 in Gaff, Pritis, and Shuey. So you'd think that Essendon would have to play an all-round, well-played kind of curtailing game to stop those 3 from getting off the chain. And on Scott Lysette, he's more or less a guarantee to be signed on. He's already told the club that he intends to stay and that he's going to sign a contract soon. So Port Adelaide has already been given a notice of stay away from Scott Lysette pretty much. And he will definitely stay. He's probably one of the fittest ruckmen in the entire AFL, Josh. He actually won West Coast time trial in the off-season. So that tells you about how much he can run as a big man.
That's a fair effort.
As a ruckman, that is a very fair effort. So he can offer us a lot down forward. Injury watch, West Coast will probably not gain Scott Selwood, even though he looks fit at the moment. They're going to throw caution to the wind and not bring him back. Mark Lacroix was a late withdrawal, and he's no certainty to come back this week, Josh, which is probably good for Essendon because he kicked 5 on them last time.
He also kicked 12 a couple of years ago at the same venue. So
it's probably yeah.
As much as I like the guy as a footballer, that is music to my ears.
It is, and now we get to the toughest part, our tip, boys. Nick, Josh. Used to Nick being here, but Nick has gone Essendon in a nail-biter. He's gone the Essendon Bombers by 4 points. Josh, who are you tipping?
Yeah, I'll be tipping Essendon. I just think the inclusions are massive. I'm not overly convinced that that will get the win, but I just think these inclusions play a big role in the team. West Coast coming off a 6-day break and travelling. Essendon having an 8-day break, not travelling, also played a little bit of a factor. So I'll be tipping the Bombers by 17 points. What about you, mate?
I really agree with your point about the travelling. It can be very tiring, and I think that will have an impact. West Coast is a fit side, but of the 120 interchange rotations, they used 116, Josh, so they're a very tired side at the moment. I'm going to tip Essendon in a close one, probably by about 10 points.
All right, mate. Well, our next game is Saturday night. It's Collingwood versus the Brisbane Lions. The last time these two teams met, it was Collingwood by 49 points. Collingwood have won the last 3 between these two teams. Vinay, we've got a couple of milestones in this game. We've got Alex Fasole plays game at 50. Jarrod Player plays game 100. And Brisbane Lions play game at 100 as well, also known as Tom Rockcliffe.
He's an absolute legend. He racked up another 40 odd on the weekend. Gets it done every single week. And look, Brisbane were just absolutely pathetic. I can't think of another word to describe it, Josh. They were in it for maybe a quarter, and that was it. Adelaide just ate them for breakfast. They had Taylor Walker murdering them, Eddie Betts murdering them. It was just an absolute procession. In that last quarter, I think Adelaide kicked 6 unanswered goals. And this is going to be a very, very interesting match for Brisbane. They don't travel too well. They got absolutely shellacked by Fremantle. They got belted by North in Melbourne. So, Collingwood will be really keen to get this win this week.
Absolutely. I mean, Collingwood were belted themselves against your boys last night. So West Coast ran all over Collingwood, to be honest. And the only person that did some running was the streaker at the end of the game. But Dane Beams has had a terrific month. I made a little mistake last week saying that his form wasn't so good before last week, but it had been, so I apologize for that.
He was very upset about that, Josh. He actually emailed us in and told us that he wasn't happy. So,
one Collingwood supporter was a bit upset, but we won't mention his name. But he had another great game. I mean, he had 35 disposals, 9 clearances, and a goal. It's been a little disappointing because before this month he had a pretty ordinary year, and it's good to see him playing some really good football again.
Yeah, definitely. Look, he's just a shining light for the Collingwood Footy Club. He's come back and had a very good season, fought back from injury, touch wood, and he's an important part for them going forward. All reports seem to point to one man that might be coming back this week, Josh. His name is Dane Swan, and he's a decent chance to come back this week. He was actually a decent chance to come back against West Coast, but I tell you what, in terms of getting some run, who better than Dane Swan?
Absolutely. I mean, he's had a very ordinary year by his standards, but he clearly hasn't been right for a long, long time. So now that he's had that 3-4 weeks off, he should become fresh and give them a real spark that they need, because they need that really strong inside midfielder that they've missed in the last couple of weeks since he's gone out. He played forward for the majority of the game against Essendon a month ago, and then went out the next week. So, yeah, I really feel they miss Swanee a lot. What they need from Dane Swan is for him to kick goals. He's struggled to kick goals this year. In previous years, that has been his strongest point. So I really think if he can kick some goals in the last month, then they're a good chance of playing finals. But he's going to be a big asset coming into the side.
You're right, Josh. Another man who's sort of like an asset, according to Damien Barrett, he's the greatest of all time. And
God.
Brodie Grundy had a beautiful showing on the weekend for Collingwood VFL. How's this? He had 24 disposals, 3 goals, and 30 hitouts. So
I was there at the game, mate, covering my stuff for the VFL side at Essendon, and I must say I didn't notice Grundy a hell of a lot because maybe I was watching more my own side and updating on my own side, but those stats speak for themselves. And I know he came up against the first gamer in the VFL, a VFL listed player, and he really took him to town. I thought when I watched those contests, Grundy was clearly above him, but when he came up against Bell Chambers, it was a good battle. But yeah, I think it may be time for a bit of a rest for Jared Witts. He's done really, really well this season, but Grundy's had a very good game in the VFL. Witts has struggled the last couple of weeks, so maybe a bit of rotation is in order.
I'd agree with you there, Josh, but it'll be interesting to see how they go. Jesse White, Josh, has he worked out at Collingwood? What do you think?
Early on you'd say yes, but if you look at the season, no.
He's not given them the boost they need down forward, has he?
No, I mean, and they tried this with Quinton Lynch. They've tried it with Jesse White. It just hasn't seemed to work. And Ben Reid's coming to the side now. Once he gets a full preseason under his belt, stays uninjured, you probably see no use for Jesse White in that side. So I don't think he's worked, to be honest, and I'm not sure what they do with him.
I definitely agree with you there, Josh. But you'd have to hope he finds some form. On the other side of this coin, you see the Brisbane Lions, and there's not really much to talk about. Jack Crisp was probably one on the weekend that is worth talking about. He's one of the youngsters at the Lions. He kicked 3 goals, probably had one of the best games, probably had the best game in his career, to be honest. He had 16 touches and 3 goals to go with 3 tackles. So it's good to see that Brisbane are getting some value out of him. But apart from that, Tom Rockcliffe was really the only one. Dane Zorko had a lot of the ball, but didn't really seem to be the damaging self that he was.
Yep.
He didn't really get involved scoring wise. He had 29 touches, but 21 of them were handballs, which is not what you want to see from Dane Zorko. You ideally want him to be kicking and using his good skills, but and other senior players are just not standing up. Guys like Merritt, even Adcock, were pretty ordinary, Josh. So where to for the Brisbane Lions right now?
Oh, gee, it's hard to say, to be honest, because when senior players don't stand up, even your captain, who was pretty ordinary. I mean, I know you got to do the best you can, but Adcock had 14 disposals for the game, and that's just not enough for a captain to lead from the front when your team is down the dumps. So maybe I'm being a little bit critical, and he's just had an off game because he has had a pretty good year, but yeah, just in the crucial moments when a young side's getting belted, I don't see the senior players standing up a hell of a lot. So that's the only thing I can see changing in the next couple of weeks before their season ends. I hope they can eke out another win. It'll be great for their young kids. Like James Aisha's had a terrific year. Lewis Taylor's had also a very good year. Daniel McStay's found his role in that side. Darcy Gardner's been very good as well. I'm sure I'm missing a couple others that have been very good in that side.
Nick Robertson got an early debut, and he's been doing pretty well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just hope they can eke out another win for those young kids, but I can't see it, to be honest, because they've got a tough run home. So it's tough to see because these young kids are fantastic footballers and they're going to be a very strong side in the future. It's just awful to see early in their careers that they go through these big losses.
I agree with you there, Josh. Who are we going to tip? Nick has tipped Collingwood by about 6 goals, 35 points. I'm going to go to a similar tune and tip them by 40 points. What do you reckon, Josh?
I'll be tipping them by 45. I think Collingwood will want to redeem themselves pretty badly, and they'll come out and win quite comfortably.
Good call, Josh. We move into the Adelaide Oval, and Adelaide get a home game against the Richmond Tigers. And if I don't mind saying so, this is probably one of the games of the round.
Here's the game of the round for me.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay. So massive raps on this game from Jay Rickard. The last time these two teams met, it was Richmond by 38 points. And Adelaide had a massive win. They absolutely slaughtered Brisbane. They had a disappointing loss to West Coast the week before, so I think they probably got a rocket from Brenton Sanderson, and boy, did they turn up. Sam Jacobs, Rory Sloane, Tex Walker, Brodie Martin, Matty Yench, list goes on, were all absolutely spectacular. And they just put the Lions to the sword and embarrassed them in front of a home crowd.
I tell you what, I love the big Texan. I love the way he goes about his football. I don't care when they were kicked, if the game was over or whatever. Big bag of goals for him. 6 will do worlds of confidence for him. Going into a final series, which this Adelaide Crows side is very much in contention for, will do him and the team massive, massive confidence. And for him to kick 6 goals coming off a knee reconstruction this season was just absolutely fantastic to see. So that's just my take on the Texan. But one player I will be absolutely staggered if he's not in the All-Australian side come the end of the year, and that is Sam Jacobs.
Yep, I will be heartbroken if he isn't. I'd agree with you there, Josh.
Sorry, mate. He took the in-form ruckman in Stephen Martin in the competition, which is a funny thing to say because at the start of the year you wouldn't have said Stephen Martin was going to be the in-form ruckman in the competition, but he was.
Good point.
He was. And Sam Jacobs just put him to the sword. He dominated him in almost every area in the ground. And if he's not All-Australian ruckman at the end of the year, you may as well get rid of the All-Australian because it'll become a joke if he's not in that side.
Oh, wow, Rickard has just given the panel a task to fulfill, but I agree with you, Josh. Rory Sloane, Batman, Bruce Wayne has been absolutely spectacular. He's just been,
Bruce Wayne.
yep, that is Batman's alias for anyone out there. I'm sorry if I've ruined the show for you, but he's been spectacular. I definitely agree that he's pushing elite status. He reminds me so much of Nathan Fyfe. He's like the Fyfe player that doesn't get mentioned very often. He takes good marks, goes forward and kicks goals, tackles really well, and wins his own ball. So he's quickly becoming one of our favourites. And Brodie Martin, he's been in and out of this side. Hasn't been rated very highly at times. He got his chance as a sub a few times, but now he's making sure everyone knows who he is. Had 3 goals and 20 touches against the Lions, and he's making that half-forward role his own. So the Adelaide Crows, they've got everything going for them going into this match, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be no easy task coming against the Tigers, but just one quick thing before we do go to the Tigers. Brodie Martin, I feel, has really taken that opportunity that's been given to him. He said he's been handed the sub-vest a number of times this year, but he's given the opportunity to play a full game, and now he's taken it with 3 goals and 20 disposals. As you know, I'm really, really big on consistency, so I'd like to see somewhat a similar performance, maybe not 3 goals, 20 disposals, but a similar performance against Richmond where he contributes to the side winning. So that's a big challenge for him to consistently put in a performance like that. So we'll see if he can do it against a much stronger opposition in Richmond this week. Speaking of the Tigers, Brandon Ellis-Vene had yet another 27 disposal game against the Bombers on the weekend.
He's becoming quickly one of the best outside runners in the game. And he's fortunate in a way because he'll never get the tag, probably, considering that you've got a midfield that, has the likes of Cochin and Deledio, and even Anthony Miles got a tag last week, I think it was. These guys, they're taking the attention away from him, and he's just relishing it. Had another 27 touches against Essendon, and he did play a bit of a defensive role. He played the role of the goalkeeper a little earlier. I think a couple of Essendon's kicks for goal were marked in the goal square by Brandon Ellis. So he just loves that loose role. He has a very good aerobic fitness capacity, so he makes his way around the ground. Ivan Maric, I tell you what, Paddy Ryder is an exceptional ruckman, but Ivan was getting beaten for pretty much the entire game, and then out of nowhere, he pulled out a spectacular performance. He pulled it out of his mullet, Josh.
He pulled it out of his mullet.
He did. Because I can't think of anywhere else that it was hiding. It was probably in there, and he really got the better of Paddy in that last quarter, and quite fittingly, he got to kick that goal after the siren, and just to cap off Richmond's great game. Shane Edwards, I'm telling you what, this guy, Richmond fans love him. They call him Titch, I think. Titch Edwards is his name, Josh.
That's the one, Titch Edwards, yep.
He has gone, as you've mentioned, he's gone from a mediocre footballer to a vital player in their side. Probably a couple of years ago, you'd say he was just one of those small forwards, but he's actually a very, very good clearance player now. He's very difficult to tackle. He's got a bit of pace, and he's a very good kick as well. So Richmond have found a good way to use him. And Ben Griffiths, I'm not the biggest fan of this man, Josh, but what did you think of his game on Saturday night?
I thought it was one of his best games of the year. I mean, he's had a number of injuries coming into his career, and I thought on Friday night he beat Michael Hurley. I didn't think he towed him up, as some Richmond supporters suggested, but I thought he beat Michael Hurley on the weekend. But he's a very good contested marker. I think he ended up taking about 7 marks for the game. I'm not sure how many of them were contested, but I know it was more than 3. So he's just a great prospect to work with, I think. And I know you say you don't rate him, but we always know big guys take longer to develop. And I think this is a case in hand with Griffiths. He's had his injuries. He's worked hard in the VFL. He's a great contested mark. He's a massive, massive kick. He's the man for me to stand next to Jack Riewoldt. I think Tyrone Vickery, it hasn't worked. I think.
To put it lightly.
To put it lightly, yes. I think Ben Griffiths can work next to Jack Riewoldt.
I think you're right there. Josh, as you mentioned, I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but he did his reputation no harm on Friday night. He was exceptional, I'll admit that. Moving into our tips, Nick has Adelaide to steal the game by 20 points, he reckons they'll win by. And I am actually going to tip the Crows as well. I think they'll get it done by about 15, actually no, 10 points. It'll be a close one. But Josh, something tells me you're going to go the other way.
Why? Because it's in front of you? Yes, I am going the other way. I think Richmond are just in fantastic form at the moment. They haven't won 6 in a row for no reason. They're playing some terrific football. Their win against us on Friday night will give them worlds of confidence because at times it looked like we'd break away, and they reeled us back in and got on top and held us off. So that'll do worlds of confidence for them, and they're on a high at the moment. So I'll be tipping Richmond by 19 points. Anyway, our next game is North Melbourne versus the Western Bulldogs. It's Sunday afternoon at Etihad Stadium. Last time these two teams met, it was North Melbourne by 29 points. I remember this game. It was absolutely woeful. And North Melbourne have won their last 3 games. Ryan Griffin, the Bulldogs captain, plays game 200.
Well, he's one of the stars of the game. I don't care what anyone says. He's had an average year, yes, but he's an absolute gun. And at his best, he's probably one of the hardest midfielders to stop. He's had problems with injury, Josh, and I'm almost certain that he's still playing with injury at the moment. He doesn't seem his usual self. He's not playing on the ground as long as he usually does, but good on him for getting to 200. North Melbourne were actually not too flash in the first half, Josh, against the Giants.
No, they weren't. They only led the Giants by 4 points at half-time, and their second half was just absolutely phenomenal. I think they managed to keep GWS to just 10 points in the second half. So that's a pretty good defensive effort, no matter who you play against. So they fixed things up. They were very ordinary in the first half, but fixed things up in the second half, which was good to see.
Very true. Petrie was quite good, and we've said this over and over again. He had a good game, but he needs to do it against the bigger clubs. He seems to be a bit like what Stuart Crameri was earlier in the year for the Western Bulldogs. He fires up in the games against the lower teams, and then against the tougher sides, he goes a bit missing, Josh. So yeah, I think they...
Sorry, mate, go on.
No, go on. You were about to say?
Yeah, I just think if North Melbourne are going to do any damage in the finals, Petrie has to be the big target. He has to start clunking marks, kicking these goals. We haven't seen it enough against the bigger sides this year. His big bags have come against the lower sides. He's had a pretty ordinary year by his standards. So yeah, I'd like to see him do it against a bigger club coming into the finals.
Yep, definitely something that he needs to work on. Ben Cunnington, you have been a big fan of this man all throughout the year. And he was exceptional on the weekend. He had 3 goals and 25 touches, and he has made the team of the round, I believe.
Yes, he has. He made it on a half-forward flank this week. I thought 3 goals was enough to put him on a half-forward flank. So, yeah, Cunnington's had a semi-okay season. His breakout year was last year. He was just a clearance machine, disposal winning, best contested machine. He was one of the best inside midfielders of the game last year, and this year he's just tailed off a little bit, but I've noticed in the last couple of weeks he has slowly been getting back into form, so it's good to see from Cunnington. One man who may come back this week for North Melbourne is Daniel Wells. He got through the VFL unscathed, however he did have a little bit of an injury scare, but North Melbourne are adamant that he is fine and is available for selection this week, so that is fantastic to see. He could be that little bit of X factor that North Melbourne need going into the finals.
And Majak Dor, unfortunately, is done for the season with an ankle issue. You feel a bit bad for Majak. He hasn't really had the best year on or off the field. Started off pretty poorly, didn't really show much with the opportunities that he did receive, and now, very unfortunately, he's gone down with a season-ending injury. Let's hope he can get back to his best next year. On the other side of this are the Western Bulldogs, who were... Again, they were okay against the Saints. They ended up getting the win quite comfortably. But the St.Kilda, they pushed very hard, the Saints, in that last quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go back to our Saints preview, we said they were good in patches but equally bad in patches. The Bulldogs were the same. I mean, they had a terrific first quarter where they kicked 7 goals, I think it was, in that first quarter, opened the game up. However, they let St Kilda back into the game. I think it got down to 10 points at one stage. I may be mistaken. It may have been 16, but and then got back out to a 35-point lead, and then it kind of went back and forth all game, and it was a weird kind of game to watch, to be honest, because one side would dominate, then the other side would completely dominate, and it was just a game of two inconsistent young sides. And luckily enough, the Bulldogs came out on top.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the most important thing, that they get the job done in the end. Sean Higgins and Adam Cooney, as you might have mentioned, they had a lot of class. And, Higgins, when he's firing, can be a very good player. He probably needs to up his consistency. But Cooney, he showed us why he was a Brownlow medalist, didn't he, on the weekend? He was just spectacular. And Jakey Stringer finally gets his Rising Star nomination. Josh, he was stiff on a couple of occasions.
Yep.
But he kicked 4 on the Saints, and he's had 10 in the last 3 games, and he's finally gotten his nomination. And
yeah, sorry, mate, go on.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up winning it, to be honest.
Ooh, that's a big call.
It is, but I honestly would not be surprised, because he has been. We're talking about all the the Aishas and the Bontempellis, but we're disregarding the fact that this kid has played forward pretty much the whole of his year.
Yep.
And he's made a pretty bloody good go of it. I mean, for a kid playing forward, it's never easy. You've got good defenders on you week in, week out, and he's delivered on a number of occasions, and he's actually kicked big bags. I think he's kicked 5 on one occasion as well. So
yeah, he kicked 5 against the Bombers 3 weeks ago. So I'm not sure I agree with that sentiment, because he has only kicked 20 goals for the year, which is fantastic for a young player. Don't get me wrong, but 10 of those have come in the last 3 games. So
probably a bit too much of a late push is what you're saying here.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yep, fair enough. That's a fair call. But in any case, let's hope that he performs well this week. Who are we going to tip? Nick reckons the North Melbourne Kangaroos will win by 30 points, so a comfortable win for them. I'm going to tip North by only 10 points, Josh, because I am banking North to do their usual North thing and screw up against the weaker sides. So wouldn't be surprised if the Dogs won this.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, mate. I've only tipped North Melbourne by 15 points. The Doggies will want to play an attacking game against North Melbourne, and yes, at times this season I've thought North Melbourne's defence isn't their strong point, so if the Bulldogs can get in and attack well, they're a big chance, but I'll be tipping North by 15.
Very good. And well, Josh, we're moving along to the Melbourne Demons and the GWS Giants, a bit of a bottom of the ladder clash here. They will do battle at the MCG on Sunday afternoon. The last time these two teams met, GWS took home the Chocolates by 32 points. And Melbourne were poor, but they didn't actually get beaten by as much as we thought they would, Josh, to Hawthorn. They went down by 50 points in the end, but they could have lost by a lot more.
Absolutely. Well, I actually thought they were pretty good in patches, to be honest, because I don't know why, but I watched this one, and they were pretty good in patches, to be honest. They took the game on. They managed to stop Hawthorn from scoring. I mean, Hawthorn never really got out of first gear, but that's still a bit of a credit to Melbourne, because they stopped their run at times and stopped them scoring, and Roughhead provided plenty of headaches for them. But I still think Melbourne were what's the word I'm looking for? They were respectable in their loss.
Yep.
So they didn't lose by as much as everyone thought they would be. So it was good to see them fight it out a little bit. But yeah.
Max Gawn was very good. He really does have some talent, the young kid. He had 9 marks on the weekend, and he had 2 goals coming off the back of 2 50-metre penalties in the exact same quarter, Max Gawn. So there's a bit of a unique factor there for you. But he's a good player. He's clearly too good for the VFL, so they must stick with him and keep giving him chances and let him develop. On the other side of this is the GWS Giants. Toby Green was a ripper again, had another beautiful game, and he had 26 possessions in the first half.
That's correct, he did.
That is unbelievable. That's unbelievable. So he was on track for 52, but he did slow down. Thank goodness for that. But he was very, very exceptional, and he has been for the last 4 weeks. Devon Smith is a very, very good player. I see a lot of Dane Zorko in this young kid. He's He's a sneaky little kind of midfielder come forward who can really be dangerous, and he had 2 goals and 21 disposals, so very Zorko-esque kind of stats there. Tom Boyd, the number 1 draft pick, only had the 6 touches, but he did have 3 contested marks. So, he is getting there, Tommy Boyd. He's another one of the players that they've just got to stick with, keep giving him games. and he will show you why he was a number 1 draft pick. Nick.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, one other player I wanted to quickly touch on before we give our tips.
Yep.
Jack Watts, I think he needs a career change, to be honest. He's not working at Melbourne. He's had 3 different coaches since he's been at the club. I think he needs to go to a much stronger club and get the best out of his ability because he's a talented footballer. Let's not make any mistakes about that. He's a very talented footballer, but he needs to go to a much stronger club because it is just not working at Melbourne, and I fear that if he stays at the club, we're never going to see the best of him.
Yep, I definitely agree on that, Josh. No question at all. But this will be an interesting game for both clubs. Actually, it looks like a bottom end game, but it'll be interesting to see how far they've come from the start of the year. And on that point, who do we think has come further, Josh? Who's going to win? Nick reckons Melbourne by 26 points. And what do you think, Ricard?
I'm going to tip the Giants.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm going to tip the Giants. I just think they're in better form at the moment. Melbourne haven't been playing their greatest. I mean, GWS had a poor second half, against North Melbourne, but their first half was very, very good. So I'll be tipping the GWS Giants, subject to change, subject to teams, but I'll be tipping them by 1 at the moment.
I think I'm probably going to follow you there, Josh. I think GWS are definitely in better form. Actually, no, hang on. I'm going to tip Melbourne here. And the reason I'm going to tip Melbourne, the reason I'm going to do it is because it's at the MCG, and Melbourne are actually quite respectable at the MCG. They almost snuck home a sneak victory against Port Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, so I reckon they might get the job done here, but I'll tip them by 1 point.
Fair enough. All right, our last game of the round. It is a massive, massive game. A top 4 clash. It is Fremantle versus Hawthorn. Sunday afternoon at Patterson Stadium. The last time these two teams met, it was Hawthorn by 58 points on that magical MCG night. Hawthorn have won the last 6 between these two sides.
This is my game of the round, Josh. I'm sorry, but I just reckon this game will be unbelievable to watch. It is Sunday afternoon at Patterson Stadium, so the Freo Dockers love playing down there. They've got their supporters who will be out in force, but there is a really interesting milestone that we should mention here, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean Burgoyne plays 2-6-4. His game 2-6-4 equals 6th with West Coast legend Peter Matera as the most games by an Indigenous footballer.
Well, he's one of my favourite players, Sean Burgoyne. He's an absolute star of the game, and I'm really glad to see him get this far. But on to Fremantle. Nathan Fyfe, I tell you what, they asked Ross Lyon today in the press conference how his shoulder was because he was in a bit of pain after that game, and Ross Lyon said to them the only reason his shoulders would hurt is because he's been carrying Fremantle for the last 6 weeks.
Oh, that's a bit of a whack against his teammates there.
I was about to say that, Josh. He's just given them a fair old whack. I think Michael Barlow's been pretty darn good, but in any case, he has been exceptional. He has kept them in numerous games, and he's probably the best player in the competition at the moment, given Ablett's injury, and he was spectacular. Hayden Crozier he's another one of those players who's been in and out, been the sub, and he's never really looked like cementing his spot until last week. He was exceptional, kicked 3 for the game, and you'd think that once Hayden Ballantyne, hangs up the boots, Crozier would be maybe the natural replacement for him as the little goal sneak up in that forward line, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was right for Hayden Crozier to get a game against such a dominant club in Geelong, down in Geelong. Ross Lyon had the confidence to bring him and Max Duffy into the side, 2 young kids, and they both played a pivotal role. I mean, they kicked 5 goals between them. Duffy came on as a sub, had 6 score involvements coming on as a sub, and really got them back into the game. So that was fantastic to see. And Crozier, he got a chance late in the game to kick a goal and keep his team in the game and give them a real chance of winning. And just he was so calm and cool and collected, and he slotted it with ease, and it was great to see.
He did, yeah, and that's exactly what you want to see from small forwards. That's exactly what they need to do. Kick those goals that everyone else needs them to kick. Michael Barlow was unbelievable. 33 possessions, 6 clearances, 6 tackles and a goal. Probably should have had... The reason I'm saying he should have had 2 goals is because one of his tackles was a free kick, I think, 10 metres out in front of the goals. It was a holding the ball call, but Fremantle took the advantage and ended up kicking the goal anyway, so he actually ended up influencing another goal. Max Duffy was brilliant, probably the sub of the round. He had 6 score involvements, Josh, and isn't that what you want to see from your sub, to get involved in the scoring chain?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said before, he got him back into the game, really, because as soon as he came onto the ground, he had a hand in almost every goal they kicked. So that was fantastic to see from the young kid.
It definitely was, Josh, and he was very, very happy to get his Fremantle debut. Hawthorn, the number one side in the AFL, have been dominant the last few weeks. They just really never, ever looked like even being challenged by the Melbourne Demons. I'll go as far to say that. They won it in an absolute canter, and they just sort of toyed with them. They ended up winning by the 50 points. Jared Roughhead, I tell you what, this guy is coming home like a raging bull for that Coleman medal. He's kicked 15 goals in 3 games, but now he's got the toughest defence in the AFL. They do not concede many goals, Fremantle. But guess what? He's not even going to be playing this week, Josh. He's going to miss out.
That's correct. I was waiting for that to click. I know it's late at night, but
it took me a while to realise that. I was just about to say that that Freo defence would have their hands full, but they won't have their hands full.
Yeah, well, Roughhead's going to, at this stage, he's going to be out. We don't know if he will challenge his suspension, but he's going to be out for 1 week with a tripping charge. So that'll be interesting to see how their forward line structures up, because Jack Gunston's out at the moment. He is a slight chance to come back in. He had a fitness test this morning, being Monday. It was his first run on the ankle, so he'll have to get through training this week and see how he goes. I've got a sneaky feeling, I might say, that he will be named, but I'm not sure if he'll play. So it'll be interesting to see how they set that forward line up against one of the best defence, if not the best defence in the competition. So another player as well, Vinay, Jordan Lewis. This guy's a machine. We talk about him almost every week, but he had another 30 disposal game on the weekend, 34 touches, I believe. Another one for my All-Australian. I tell you what, I might release an All-Australian side after round 23. We might do it collectively. How does that sound?
That sounds like a very good idea, actually, and we've probably nominated about 50 players during the year for the All-Australian, so it'll take us some good time to wade through it.
We might do it on our News and Views show, round 23 News and Views show. How does that sound?
That sounds very good, and there's something for you guys out there to look forward to.
And finally, mate, Matt Spanger, he's been fantastic this year. He's been in and out of the side, but when he's taken his opportunity, especially in that period of Josh Gibson when he was out for two to 3 months, he really took that key position defender role really, really well, and he's likely to get a contract extension. He's a cult figure down at Hawthorn, so fantastic to see that Matty Spanger is going to get a contract extension.
Good on him, Spang, the big Spang. He's been around the blocks a couple of times. He's played for West Coast, then Sydney, and now he's settled on a home at Hawthorn. And he's got his chance, and he's been very, very good every time he's gone. And he's a bit of a meathead, isn't he, Josh? He won't do the flashy stuff, but he will put his head on the line 10 times out of 10, and that's what Hawthorn need.
I tell you what, it seems like success follows him.
Pardon? It seems like
success follows him.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
At Sydney.
Whatever club he goes to, they seem to do really well. I agree with you there, Josh. So
okay, I think Essendon should offer him $1 million a year and get him to the club.
I'd agree with you there, Josh. He's definitely the kind of spirited player that you'd like on your list, but he will need to be at his firing best if Hawthorn are to win. On that note, will they win? Nick thinks they won't. He thinks the Fremantle Dockers, apparently he was impressed enough by them against his boys that he's tipped them. He's gone Freo by 11. What do you reckon, Josh?
Yeah, I'll be tipping Fremantle as well. I just think with Roughhead potentially going to be out, Gunston not 100% sure. I'm just not sure how that forward line is going to structure up. So, especially against, as I said, one of the best defences in the competition, just think Fremantle might get the chocolates. They did play very, very well down in Geelong on Saturday night, so I think Fremantle may just get up by 9 points.
I agree on this point that Hawthorn are a little undermanned in their forward line. If Jack Gunston plays, I will tip Hawthorn. I think they're still the better side, and I think they travel very easily, comfortably. But if he doesn't, I'd say the Freo defence will have the measure of the Hawthorn defence and forward line. So, assuming that Gunston plays, I'll tip Hawthorn by 10, and if he doesn't, I'll tip Freo by 10.
Fair enough, mate. Well, that brings us to the end of another show of Beyond the Boundary. We do apologise that this is an audio version only. Nick is currently sick at the moment, so we hope he gets better and we'll be back to normal as as normal next week. So our Twitter handles we will put into the description, but they're at BTBAFL, at GeisonN, at JRickard1991, and at VKLax. You can send us an email at btbafl@live.com.au. Just send us an email about absolutely anything. Not many emails come through there, to be honest, but if you want to talk to us about something, please send us an email. We're happy to answer them. No problems whatsoever. Vinay, who would you like to thank?
I'm thanking Valium. The first time I haven't been able to look at the camera and say that, but my voice will have to do for them, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no news and views this week because of our our unfortunate, our unfortunate circumstances with Nick not being well. So there's no news and views this week, but it will be back next week. So make sure you tune into that. Thank you for joining us, Vinay. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, Josh. Pleasure.
Go Bombers. I hope we beat you on the weekend.